Welcome back. In this video, we are going to add this little icon here at the top and also this form here in which we then can enter an email address of a member that we want to add to our list. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's get started with that. Of course, the code that then triggers the whole event, that's what we're going to do in the next video. But let's start with what you have seen there. So the first thing that I'm going to create is a new menu. So let me go over to my resources menu, and here let's create a new menu resource file, which I'm going to call menu add member. And here I want to add an item as usual, and that item will have an ID, which will be action add member. Then we need to use an icon, and here I'm going to use a plus icon. So I see, let me look if I can find that. I think I don't have one. I think it makes sense to just create one. I see this plus icon. I see vector add 24dp. So I'm going to call it. All right, I see vector add 24dp. Then the order in category, as we only have one, we're going to use 100. The title should be, and here I think it makes sense to use a new string. And by the way, we're going to use some more strings and also some more dimensions, so you can just download the updated string and dimensions file. Here we are using add member, then the cancel, add, and search member texts. Okay, so all of those strings need to be added, as well as if we go to our dimensions, we will need some more dimensions here because we're using dialogues and everything. So just download the latest version of this file, and then you don't have to type all of that here. Okay, so it's just the dimensions. We don't want to go through that in too much depth. Okay, then we can finish off the member. So here we can now go ahead and use it. So here, add member, so the string here, and then I'm going to say show as action always. So this one should always be visible as an action that we can directly trigger. Okay, so let's add it here as well. Let's add the namespace, create namespace entry. All right, so that is it for this menu. And next we're going to add this dialog here. So you can try to build it yourself, or you can just copy one from the code that we used in one of the earlier projects. Okay, so now I'm just going to add that file into our project. You can also download it. So either you try to build it yourself or you download it. I think trying it yourself would be a good exercise so that you can just try to add this functionality. All right, so let's go and look at this file, which I'm going to call dialog search member, or which is called like that. So let's look at it. So we have a frame layout, and then we have a card view inside of that frame layout. So it's this card view here, and then we have a text view, an email, and two more text views. It's not buttons, right? So we have this linear layout in which we then have a text view. Underneath we have a separator again, or a divider, which is this view here. Then we have an input layout. Within that we have an edit text, which is this email here that we can enter. Of course, you could rename it to add member because we're not really searching, right? So we have this text view which says search member. So I'm just going to rename that to add member, or write text add member. Then we have a linear layout which positions the two buttons next to each other, which are not really buttons, but it's text views. Okay, so we're using those two text views as buttons. So we have a weight of 1 so that they have the same width. That's the idea here. even though we set the width as 0 density pixels, but by applying weight to it, they will be equally wide. All right, then we have some padding, we have a text that we assign to them, a specific text size, a text color, which is our color accent, and then we have the secondary text color for the other buttons. So we have the add and cancel button having slightly different text colors here. Okay, but up to this point, this was nothing new. So I'd say let's implement those elements that we just prepared. So first of all, let's implement the menu in our members activity. So here, as it seems, we don't have a function that it takes care of that. So whenever you use a menu, you need to add two functions, right? So it's the onCreateOptions menu, onCreateOptions menu, and then you need the onOptions item selected. So if you want anything to happen, if one of those items is clicked, and usually you should want that. Okay, so onOptions item selected. So first of all, in the onCreateOptions menu, here we want to inflate the menu. Okay, so we use the menu inflator, and then we inflate our r.menu.menuAddMember, and then we need to pass in the menu from the onOptions create or onCreateOptions menu function. Now here the menu inflator should be with a capital I, and then we can go ahead and add the onClick event. So let's just do that in here. So here we can just say when item.item ID is equal to r.id. And here we call this one action add member. If that one is clicked, then I want to display the dialog. Okay, so if you want to display the dialog, you of course need to prepare the dialog. So I'd say let's just do that real quick. So we will need to create a new function for this, and I'm gonna call this one private fun dialog search member, which then first of all creates a dialog. So we have the dialog object dialog with the context that we need to pass it. So it's always the same approach, right? Then we can give it a content view so that it has a specific appearance. So dialog set content view. Here we say that it should be our r.layout dialog search member, which is this XML file that we created. So we say, okay, this is how you should look. Then we add an onClick listener for the two buttons. So one of them is TV add, set on click listener, and the other one is dialog .tv cancel, and that's the easier one. So another set on click listener, and here we just dismiss the dialog. Okay, and of course we also need to make sure that the dialog is shown at one point. So dialog.show. Okay, so now once we click on the button, we want to call this dialog search member. Okay, so we want to call this function here, and when we click on the plus button. But then of course, what do we want to do when we click on the add button? Well, here we want to first of all check if the email, or get the email that the user entered. Email is going to be dialog.et email search member to text to string. Or actually it's not to text, but it's just a text. Okay, so text to string. And now we can check, is it empty? Because if the user didn't enter anything, we don't want to do anything. So email is not empty. If it's not empty, then for now we will just dismiss the dialog. Of course, we will need to implement the logic here. Okay, so here to do implement adding member logic, and then if it's empty, then we just want to let the user know that he should enter an email address here. Okay, so I'm just going to do it with a toast here saying make text, please enter email address. Now there's one last thing to do, and that is to return true in this case, because then all is good and we can return true because it expects a boolean. We're just going to say, all right, all is fine. We're done with doing the action when you display this menu. Okay, I think at this point we should be able to test it on our application. So let's do that. And we are still missing this dialog rounded, so this shape here. And we can create this drawable resource. So let's just do that. And it will be a shape. So let's create a new shape here. Okay, so here I want to, first of all, define it as a rectangle. So if we look at it, we can see that this here is a rectangle that we're using. So let's use the shape rectangle. Then I have a solid background, so a solid color, which is just going to be white. And here, of course, I have to add the hashtag. And then I have corners here, which are rounded. So I just give it a radius of 10 density pixels. All right, and that's it. So this is our shape dialog rounded XML. Now let's go ahead and test it. All right, so there we are, Projet Manage. Now let's go over to our board with image. Here, let's go to members. Now let's click the plus button. You can see the screen opens. Let's cancel. Okay, it directly is closed. Let's click this. You can see, please enter members email address. So I'm just gonna say test@test.com. But of course, nothing will happen for now when we click this because it just dismisses the dialog. Okay, so that is it for now. I'd say let's implement the functionality behind the add button in the next video. So see you there.